Welcome, everybody, to the Seattle Sports Union Podcast. My name is Abraham DeWeese. I'm back in with the Ram, Richard A. Michelson on the boards. Of course, this is Soul Man Brian Solak. We are talking Seattle Sounders. Rich, 8 straight losses.
Yeah.
Let me say it, 8 straight losses.
Yep. The
This
most
is-
for the Sounders ever in any era, in any league. Yeah, this is the super duper dire days. This is bad.
This is cataclysm. This is that Mariners 22-0 game against the Brewers, but just 8 straight times. Maybe it's not that bad.
It's not that bad, but
They haven't looked competitive, though.
I mean, last night against Austin, they really did look competitive. It's probably the best game that they've played, other than I think like the first loss. So let's back up. It's 8 straight losses in MLS play. Okay. 2 of those losses were at the tail end going into the World Cup. It was a 1-0 loss to LAFC at LAFC. It was a 2-0 loss to LA Galaxy at LA Galaxy. So both were away games. And up until then, I mean, the Sounders had been off to their hardest start ever, 7-1, not ever, but like a really hot start, like first time in 5-6 years that they'd had as hot of a start as they did. They were, I think, 7-1-3. And then like since the World Cup break, the wheels have completely come off. And
Why?
It's
Why?
bad.
What happened?
I mean, this is the worst batch of injuries to the Sounders that I have seen since I really started paying attention to this version of the Sounders in 2013. Okay. I mean, the number of players hurt, basically you name a player and almost everyone has been hurt and missed significant time is really what this boils down to. The most notable injury, the most important player on the team has been mostly hurt throughout this run of bad form, and it's Christian Roldan. He was injured sometime before those 2 LA games, before the World Cup, and he was trying to push through the injury. He wanted to go to the World Cup. It's probably his last chance. He's 30. He didn't make it onto the field in Qatar in 2022. He was like the 26th man on the roster, but he had been playing for this national team. The head coach really liked him and praised him like a ton and said he was part of his plans. He really thought that he could be really impactful at the World Cup. And then he gets hurt in World Cup, ironically enough, it was after the game here in Seattle in which he did not play. It was what happens in matches when players don't play is that the guys that don't actually get in the match have to go do a practice, basically.
Right.
To make sure that they get their fitness in is basically how it works. It's kind of like a double punishment if you don't play and you don't make it off the bench. You have to go, like you get all revved up to go into that game and then you don't get to go into the game, which is kind of like your reward. And then you have to play a game. That's a bummer. And now you got another bummer if you have to run a practice for an hour and a half or whatever. He got hurt during that practice and never recovered during the World Cup. And he's still hurt. I mean, World Cup got over a month and a week ago. So.
And Jackson Reagan looks like he got injured today.
Jackson Reagan got
the other
injured.
day.
Yeah. Well, yesterday he got re-injured. Yeah. He'd also missed I think a game because of yellow card accumulation. He also had missed a couple of other games early in this run of bad form. Yamar's been hurt since March, I believe. Jordan Morris has been hurt off and on throughout the whole year, has not looked like himself. So people... Danny, I don't know if Danny Musovski is hurt or not. I think he did miss a couple of games, but something's wrong with him because he doesn't look anything like the player from last year when he scored 18 goals across all the competitions. So people are calling... is the number one reason, right?
Yeah. But got it. The people are calling for the heads of the GM Waibel and
ownership group. Period.
Okay, how so? You're not putting this on Schmetzer. You're not putting this on Waibel.
I'm not. I am gonna 100% put it on the ownership group, and it's basically that they have stopped spending at the rate at which they used to spend, like when they were good. It's basically what it boils down to. This is what Sounders fans expect is for the Sounders to go to Europe or some other out of the United States area and find a star and bring them to Seattle. That is the standard. Casey Keller, Lundberg, Obafemi Martins, Clint Dempsey, Nicholas Ladero, even lesser players, Roman Torres, Andreas Ivanschitz, the role players, Freiberg. The list can go on. I was just bringing up those guys from the banner year of 2016 when the Sounders basically needed reinforcements badly halfway into the season, and the ownership group went and got 4 players from outside of the league and brought them in. That was 2015 is when most of those players came in. Ladero was in 2016.
You're saying ownership's not willing to go pay.
Ownership has spent the least over the last 4 years. They have spent the very least on transfer fees in the entire league.
Transfer is kind of like free agency, right?
For the casual fan, you have to pay a fee to do a trade, in other words, to get the rights of the player, because you don't have a monopoly like you do in Major League Baseball, for example, where the players don't have rights per se. I mean, they negotiate them in the CBA every so often, and then we get a lockout. And that's a different podcast, I guess, or a different version of this podcast. We could bring on Matt and have him rant about the Mariners ownership for another time. Anyway, but you have to pay the other team for losing the player that you're going to then sign away from them. Is what it boils down to. So,
and we're just not putting the money into doing that.
Nope. We're not. And this has been a gradual change and then an accelerating change with 2 big developments. Number one, Joe Roth was one of the big 3 investors in the Sounders when the Sounders came into Major League Soccer. He was the 3rd guy, really. The other 2 being Paul Allen was the biggest owner, but he was like, I'll put up money. I'll give you support from the Seahawks business group. I don't really want to be involved day to day. Tell me where to send the money and write checks. I love soccer, but I don't want to try to run a soccer business. I don't know anything about it.
And is he divested after his passing?
His after his passing, the trust and will that they divested, and the Sounders brought in a bunch of new owners, and then Joe Roth, the mega producer, he also divested, and it left Adrian Hanauer as the managing partner. Okay. And he has sold some of his shares. He's invested in a bunch of other stuff. He's doing the entrepreneur pro sports thing. He's brought in a bunch of money and, was part of the group that bought the Seattle Reign. So, I mean, he's doing good things and everything, but since 2021, this group has not invested in transfer fees.
So did they not replace the billionaire and Roth, who maybe not a billionaire, still had a lot of money? Mm-hmm. Did they not replace them with owners that have deep pockets?
I mean, I think that they do have deep pockets collectively, but there is not one owner that can just bully up to the the board meeting and say, "Tell me how much it is, I'll write a check." Right? Like you've got guys like Russell Wilson, who's in the ownership group. And I don't know how much of the Sounders he owns, but Russell Wilson is not, I mean, at most is maybe 100 million heir, right? He's not a billionaire, right? He just can't write the checks that guys like Joe Roth and, Paul Allen could, right? It's just impossible.
And the Sounders have a ton of those, right? The Drew Carey's, the
rapper
Macklemore.
It's a rich man's version of the Green Bay Packers, for lack of a better explanation. You just can't compete with Arthur Blank, who still owns Home Depot, right? You just don't have money like that. That's part of it.
That guy died.
That guy died. Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's purely a money thing. I mean, by all understanding, the Sounders still have money. They still pay. So there's this fake type of money called allocation money. It's a way you bend the salary cap, right? But part of the allocation money just lets you spend more. You still have to spend the money. It's not just it's credit from Major League Soccer that you get free money in your bank account that you can do something with. It's more here's a pool of money that lets you bend the salary cap. You still have to come up with the money yourself. So the Sounders still spend that money on salaries, right? They spent a lot of money that's off of salary cap entirely on their academy system, which is one of the top 2 or 3 in all of Major League Soccer. We have a very deep, good pipeline. If you look at the starting lineup, I think something like 8 or 9 of the players last night were from the Sounders' own like system, basically. The problem is, so you and I actually had a talk about this back in 2022. I remember this conversation. I remember the podcast we did. And we talked about the academy. This is right as Garth Lagerwey was on his way out the door, right? And you're like, hey, what's going to happen? You know, is this a good thing, a bad thing? I'm like, well, I mean, he's earned a promotion. We weren't going to give it to him. Deeper pockets in Atlanta, et cetera, right? But I really praised him for building out the academy system. And I said, you know, it'd be great. You know, this is going to be awesome because we're going to have a whole bunch of starters that we basically got for nothing, in essence. Like, you're required to have an academy. You have to spend money on it. It's mandated by the league and mandated by U.S. Soccer. So if you're going to have to spend money, like, make it good money, spend it well, get a bunch of free starters, in essence, right? You could get team control for a bunch of years, and then like some of them will stay, some of them will go, right? Maybe a few will become, you know, team legends, right? But the other part of that Garth Lagerwey envisioned and Craig Waibel envisioned when they were talking about this and going through this transition was that ownership was still going to bring in the marquee designated players, right? And ownership was really going to fork over the money when necessary, like to find that crucial Nicholas Ladero, Raul Ruidiaz, Casey Keller, like whoever it was that you needed, right? Like that guy with the deep pedigree, bring them in, back up the Brinks truck, pay them the money. And ownership hasn't done that. And Brian Schmetzer is like the most loyal guy ever. He's not a guy that burns bridges. He's not a guy that calls out ownership or the senior management, but he has basically, in his mild-mannered, passive-aggressive, super-duper nice Northwest kid, Seattleite to the core who's not going to ever call someone out, called out the ownership group and said basically like...
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he's like alluded to the fact that there are some stuff going on, but he's been really frustrated with the fact that they haven't brought in talent the last few years. The last time we really got a big transfer, if you will, was Albert Rusnak, and he was in interleague, right? Like there was no transfer fee. We just paid them a bunch of our allocation money, and that was that, right? Like, and then Jesus Ferreira, which like lots of people can say, oh, he's a bust. Oh, he's been terrible. But I mean, he's not a designated player. We didn't pay designated player money for him. We're paying him on a TAM contract, which is like kind of the veteran exception type of a contract, right? So he's getting a lot less money than the big players. But the real issue is that De La Vega is a bust. The guy just can't stay on the field. And I don't think he's a bust because he's not talented. He's a bust because he's missing the number one ability for all professional athletes, which is availability.
Yep.
You just can't. I mean, he came on a couple games ago and got injured within 10 minutes, and he's done for the season. So, I mean, like, the injuries are the number one issue, period. But the number two issue is that ownership has not done their job, right? Like, you go back to... I don't remember who it was, but it was like one of these professional sports owners was kind of criticizing like George Steinbrenner way back in the day. He's like, owners do owner things, general managers do general manager things, field managers do field manager things. Everyone needs to do their job and stay out of the other person's way, right? Like,
Right.
This is not Connie Mack and the A's in the 1920s and 30s, right? Like, so the third issue, though, if you want to know why, is that we don't have enough depth in central midfield. Okay, the Sounders play in what has become the traditional formation of the 2000s, which is the 4-2-3-1. Four guys in the back, two defensive central midfielders, three attackers, so two guys on the wing and one in the center, the central attacking midfielder, and then one striker up top. And right now, our two guys playing, whoever they are, they're just getting overrun. Like constantly overrun and turning the ball over way too much. And in part, that's because they're so dang young, because everyone ahead of them is injured.
Right. You had a 18-year-old last night, right, playing?
Yeah, Snyder Brunell, and then he's being partnered with it was a kid from Tacoma. I can't even remember his name.
Was it anyway? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players that are probably rushed too early, right?
Mhm. I finally found the article quote I'd like to read. This is from Matt Doyle, who used to be with Major League Soccer.com and was on one of their on-air talents on their podcast as well as their Apple TV broadcast. He's since gone his own way because they let him go because they're getting cheap. But that's again a different podcast. And he says he's talking about Seattle. He does a Substack. That's great. His weekly column, and he was going through all the teams in Major League Soccer and talking about like what they need to do to fix the season at this point. Can they still fix it? And quote, will they address it though? Since the Nico Ladero signing a decade back, the last time things were this grim in Seattle, only two teams have spent less in the transfer market than the Sounders. St. Louis, who've been around for 3 years, and the Quakes, who are the Quakes, bringing the timeline up to the start of this decade. And literally zero teams have spent less than the Sounders. The Quakes, St. Louis, Philly, Montreal, San Diego. Everybody's spent more than the 2020 Sounders have.
Wow.
Anyway, I still like most of the roster. We should all remember where they were in the standings before all the injuries hit. I don't think they need a major surgery, just a couple of signings and maybe some kind of blood sacrifice to end the injury curse.
So that quote from 2020, you could apply right this second because they were 7-3-1, and now they're 7-3-9,
Yeah,
and the injuries have mounted, and they haven't been banged.
right. So in 2015, we had a couple of really cool things happen all at once in a game that folks will say didn't matter, but went down as one of the greatest games ever associated with Major League Soccer, which was called the Red Card Wedding
Yes, in the U.S. Open.
in the U.S. Open. And that's a reference to Game of Thrones for those that don't know things like that. Anyway, and the reason it was called the Red Card Wedding is that Clint Dempsey, the headline, got really frustrated because the Sounders ended up with 3 guys getting sent off with red cards. Sounders got a whole bunch of yellow cards, and the game was officiated really, really poorly by this guy. And finally, he got so fed up that he went up to the referee, took his book, like there's actually a book where they write down who got a yellow card and fouls and things, and he tore up the referee's notebook. He then got red carded and sent off. But it was, but in that game, what people don't remember maybe is that Obafemi Martins went out with an oblique injury that lasted 10 weeks. And in that run, the next 11 games after that red card wedding, the Sounders lost 9 out of 11 games. They won one game and had a draw. And it was collectively called the dire days. And then the next year, the Sounders also had super duper dire days, to the point where like the pundits at Major League Soccer, when they were just still doing their podcast, one of them, his last name is Ben Bear. So he's a bear. Anyway, he made a guarantee that Sounders were not going to make the playoffs. At the time, they stood at the bottom of the Major League Soccer standings. And then they got Nico Ladero, turned the season around.
That was 2015.
That was 16 when that
16.
happened. So they had 2 years in a row. But the problem with both of those teams is that they were overly dependent on Clint Dempsey and Obafemi Martins. And this year, the Sounders have basically painted themselves into a corner the exact same way. They're overly dependent on Jordan Morris and his speed up top and Christian Roldan's ability to dominate the central midfield and control everything on the field from where he sits there, right? Without him on the field and without Jordan Morris up top, the Sounders become slow, predictable, and can't control anything in the central midfield.
We have 24 points on the table. Theoretically, they could win a couple games, get back into the playoffs. What's your temperature? It is possible. Is it probable?
It's very possible. So Major League Soccer is the ultimate, like, because of a playoff system, and B, the fact, especially late in the season in general, is that you play a bunch of people in your own conference. You can hop people up. You can move up the playoff line really, really quickly. Typically, the playoff line has been anywhere from 42 to 47 points. So they still got, like, they need to double their point total. But basically 3 months ago, this team was in contention to win, like, the best team in the league for the season. They were in the running for the Supporters Shield. They were a dark horse for that. They were, like, maybe not as hot as some of the other teams, maybe not quite as much talent, but they had put up numbers, right? But something needs to change. They need a talent infusion. They need to not be injured. And quite frankly, I mean, a lot of people are calling for the manager's head. Reasonably so. You can call for the manager's head. I don't really think that this is a manager problem. I don't know. Like, the Sounders were really solid defensively until basically like three mistakes that broke down. And on the first goal they gave up last night, it was just a couple of dumb mistakes defensively, and a couple of players, quite frankly, slacking off, like not covering the men coming back after an
Yeah.
offensive attack. But it's also like the offense has sucked this season. They've scored 20 goals in league.
They've scored 21 goals. Yeah.
There we go.
Given up 26.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, that's not like the worst record. Like, there are worse teams, obviously, but it's not enough goals. You can't consistently win with such a thin margin. And just like any sport, if you rely too heavily on one aspect of your team, football, you rely on the defense too much, you rely on special teams too much, you rely on offense too much. What happens when that unit gets cold,
Yep.
right? Soccer's a little bit different, but
Basketball, you rely on the three. What
yeah,
happens when the three goes away? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like, if you're not a balanced team, or at least somewhat balanced, you're going to have a problem. And I mean, the Sounders have been a great defensive team up until the last 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks, since Portland put 5 goals on them. Like, I mean, they were excellent defensively, but it's just a matter of, like, you just can't always rely on
Yeah.
the defense.
Last question. Is it too late for any transfers or any trades?
No, we've got, I think, another week and a half to
Maybe.
do transfers, and then you can still do signings as well, but not from outside of the leagues. They'd have to be true free agents.
Well, maybe the Sounders ownership will realize they're not the Mariners ownership and actually decide to spend some money. We'll see.
I mean, I certainly hope so. I mean, what's a shame is that there is a lot of talent on the Sounders. Most of it's injured. Is really the problem, and the injuries have come in, like, they've come in bunches at the same position, if that makes sense. So, like, all the center backs were hurt for a while, and now all the central midfielders are hurt, basically. So,
Right on. Okay. Well, well, we'll get back together again, and we'll see how this goes in a couple of weeks here. But in the meantime, I want to thank everybody out there for listening to us here on YouTube and as well as Spotify. Oh, we forgot to do shout outs. We have to do shout outs. We always end with shout outs. Our producer, the soul man, Brian Solak, wants to give a shout out to Sounder fans. We need to change the demeanor and get Rich back to being happy. Okay.
there we go. Yeah.
Sounds more
I have
like
a
a
shout-out.
command than a shout out. Yes, good.
Shout out to Stuart Hawkins of the Sounders. Last night he scored his first Major League Soccer goal.
Nice.
It came late in the game, but it put the Sounders back into the game, and the crowd all of a sudden, like, finally had something to cheer for. And, like, if the Sounders could play like they did the last, like, 10 minutes of that match, that would be, like, the thing to do.
And just
So
do
maybe
more of
we can have a
that.
rally like the 1988 Buffalo Bills, when they figured out that a hurry-up offense was actually the way to just be their offense all the time. Maybe we could figure out something like that for soccer.
Awesome.
Who knows?
Oh, the old.
But anyway, shout out to Stuart Hawkins. Good job, Stewie.
All right. And I'm going to give my shout out to a couple of coworkers, CJ and Felicia. Their contracts ended at Boeing. Good luck to you guys. And I know you'll go find something pretty easily here coming soon. Again, want to thank everybody for being on the show. Thank you, Rich, for being on the show and telling us your perspective here on the Sounders. And hopefully they can turn it around. On behalf of Richard Michelson and the Soul Man Brian Solak, my name's Abraham DeWeese. We'll see you guys next time. And go Sounders.